is dominating the headlines on the front of The Guardian as well. The Daily Mail publisher is facing a legal challenge. Doreen Lawrence, Prince Harry are among some of the famous figures that are launching legal action against the publishers of the Daily Mail over alleged misuse of private information, including accusations relating to the placing and listening of devices in private homes. We can be joined now by Steve Kunstvich, who is a media lawyer at Clyde & Co, to talk about this case. Steve, thank you very much for joining us. I wonder if you can start a little bit with what the case is to do with and why the banding together of a group of people will potentially have more of an impact.
Good morning, Ben. So there's been a lot of reporting about this being an extension of the previous phone hacking litigation. But when you look at this case, it actually goes a lot further than that. When we deal with cases like this, it's very often over the content of an article and the balancing of freedom of expression in the press against the rights and privacy of individuals. This is more, as was the phone hacking litigation, about how those stories are put together, about the methods that are used to source this information and to put this kind of content out into the wider world. And when you have a group of people, certainly led by such a very, very public figurehead, it's a suggestion that you have a band of claimants getting together to try and hold what is a very powerful publisher who, by the way, has denied these claims to account.
Some of the allegations do go back a very long time. Is that going to be a problem for them?
Well, you would normally have a limitation period of around 6 years for claims like this. But when you look back at the previous phone hacking litigation, if the conduct that we're talking about has been hidden, if you like, deliberately concealed, then the court can decide to extend that limitation period. And in the Daily Mail's in Associated Newspapers denial, they do make the case, they do make the point that these stories go back to the best part of 30 years. So there's always a bit of a danger there in terms of how much evidence you're going to be able to get hold of and how you're going to be able to plead the case effectively. But it's certainly not stopped the phone hacking claimants before.
Is it also obviously challenging in terms of finding evidence, but what would it also have an impact on in terms of the newspaper's position? Because they might well argue, mightn't they, that the practices were very different back then. And would that be any sort of defence?
Well, we're going to see what the defence is, I would imagine, pretty shortly, because the papers have just gone into court, proceedings have just been issued. And the Associated Newspapers are on record during the Leveson inquiry having denied being involved in any kind of activity like this. So I think it's really too early to get into much of the detail, apart from to note that this is going to take a few years to make its way through the court, and it's a really significant claim.
Well, Associated Newspapers have given us a statement. They say we utterly and unambiguously refute what they call preposterous smears, which appear to be nothing more than a pre-planned and orchestrated attempt to drag the Mail titles into the phone hacking scandal concerning articles up to 30 years old. So they're pretty firm in their position, aren't they?
They are, and they're going to have to be. And they're going to stay firm in that position for the foreseeable future, I would imagine. We're going to find out exactly how firm, again, as I say, over the course of the next few weeks.
Steve, thank you very much. Ian, I wonder, a group of high-profile personalities, some from different worlds, coming together, certainly feels like that support in numbers when you're taking on a situation like this is hugely important for their own sort of strength of character, to be able, strength of belief that they can take on this, because it's not for the faint-hearted, something like this, is it?
It really isn't, and you need some deep pockets as well. And obviously, a lot of the people involved in this are very high-profile celebrities. If you feel wronged, and presumably they genuinely do, then, I mean, you can't criticise them for bringing a case like this. But, I mean, that statement from Associated Newspapers, I mean, pretty hard-hitting. And you might say, a lot of people watching might say, well, they would say that, wouldn't they? But, I mean, they weren't involved in the phone hacking scandal. And I think this is going to be quite an interesting one to see what the court's reaction is, how the judge handles the case as it goes along, because they need to have a pretty watertight case to win this.